All right, Annalise, spit it out. Literally, you got toothpaste foam all down your chin.
Dad, I'm in the middle of brushing my teeth. You can't start recording now.
Sure I can. Plus, you had a question before you started brushing. I thought it'd be a good time to start. Ask your question again for the audience.
Okay, so
We brush our teeth in the morning and then again at night. Every single day. Why is that, Dad?
Yeah, it's a question that most people know the basic answer to. It's for dental health. It helps remove plaque, and because mom and dad tell you to, of course. But obviously, there's a much deeper answer. There's a real biological battle happening in your mouth every day, and twice a day brushing is basically the true slime.
A battle? Like Anakin fighting Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Kind of, but without lightsabers or an awesome soundtrack. Here's a simple version before we get into the deep stuff. Your mouth has bacteria living in it right now, trillions of them. And some of them eat the sugar you eat. And when they do, they produce acid. That acid eats away at your teeth. Brushing twice a day disrupts that process before it does permanent damage.
There's bacteria in my mouth right now while I'm talking to you?
Yup, hundreds of species. Most of them are totally harmless. Some are even helpful. But there's one particular troublemaker we need to talk about. And I actually want to give him a name, because he's basically the villain of this whole episode.
Ooh, everyone loves to hate a good villain, like Moff Gideon. Okay, hit me.
Well, you've been preoccupied with Star Wars lately. Anyways, meet Sugarbug Doug.
Sugarbug Doug? Wait, I know that name. That's from a book.
It is from the book. I was hoping you remember that. For the audience, there's a little picture book called Sugarbug Doug, written by a real dentist, Dr. Ben Magleby. Magleby?
I remember my cousin Eddie talking about him.
Right, and that's the significance of reading to little kids. They remember that stuff they're told in a story. Anyways, the author actually wrote and illustrated the whole thing himself. Dr. Magleby is the reason we even have a Doug to talk about today. Sugarbug Doug, then, is our nickname for a bacteria called Streptococcus mutans. Say that 5 times fast.
Streptococcus mutans, Streptococcus mutans, Streptococcus mutans, Streptococcus mutans, Streptococcus mutans. I did it!
One more time from memory.
Streptococcus mutans.
Excellent. And he is, hands down, the single biggest cause of cavities in the human mouth.
It's all due to just one kind of bacteria out of all the hundreds we may have? What does Sugarbug Dog actually do?
So, picture this. You eat a cookie. To you, it's delicious. And it's delicious for Dog and its billions of friends living in that sticky film in your teeth. That's called plaque, by the way. That cookie is an all-you-can-eat buffet.
Gross, but okay.
Doug eats the sugar, and as he digests it, he burps out acid, lactic acid specifically, and that acid lowers the pH right at the surface of your tooth enamel. Enamel's the hard, white outer layer. And once that pH drops below about 5.5, the enamel actually starts to dissolve. It's called demineralization.
So my tooth is dissolving in my mouth, in my own mouth?
A little. Minerals like calcium and phosphate are literally being pulled out of the enamel and into your saliva. Now, here's the thing. Your saliva is actually fighting back the whole time. It's got minerals dissolved in it, too. And when the acid attack stops, saliva pushes those minerals back into the tooth. That's called remineralization.
So it's not just Doug attacking. My spit is like healing me at the same time.
Exactly. Your mouth is in this constant tug of war between demineralization and remineralization. All day, every day. Every time you eat sugar. Doug attacks and the balance tips toward the damage. Every time you go a while without eating, saliva repairs it. A cavity only forms when the attack happens so often that repair never catches up.
Oh, so that's why they say don't snack all day long?
Bingo. Constant grazing means constant acid attacks with no recovery time. It's actually worse for your teeth than eating a big dessert once and being done with it.
So we brush to help get rid of the plaque that Doug is living in? But what exactly is plaque? Like, is it just leftover food stuck on my teeth?
That's what most people think, but it's actually way weirder than that. Plaque is alive. It's what scientists call a biofilm, which is basically a whole tiny bacterial city built right on your tooth.
A city on my teeth?
Kind of, yeah. Here's how it happens. First, proteins from your own saliva coat your teeth in this thin, sticky film, almost like primer before paint. That happens within minutes of you finishing brushing.
So my spit is basically gluing stuff to my teeth?
Pretty much, and that film is exactly what Doug and his bacteria buddies grab onto. Once they attach, they don't just sit there, they build. They actually produce their own sticky material called a matrix that cements them to your tooth and to each other.
So it's not just bacteria sitting on my teeth. It's bacteria building a fort?
A fort with layers of neighborhoods, some bacteria on top, some tucked in deeper. And here's the dangerous part. That fort traps the acid Doug produces right against your enamel, instead of it washing away in your spit. That's why plaque causes so much more damage than the same bacteria just floating around loose would.
So that's why brushing is so important.
Right, you're physically knocking down the fort. That's why it's mechanical, not just about the minty flavor. And if you let that fort stand for a day or two without knocking it down, it starts pulling minerals out of your saliva and hardening into something called tartar. Not the stuff you put in your fish. And once that happens, a toothbrush can't take it down anymore. Only a dentist can.
Okay, that's actually way grosser than I thought, but it's also kind of cool. But what you've said so far is all about the toothbrush action. What's the toothpaste for? Like if bristles are doing the knocking down, is the paste just for the mint flavor?
Nope, actually toothpaste is doing two completely different jobs at once, and neither one is really about flavor. One's mechanical and one's chemical.
Okay, mechanical first.
So toothpaste has these tiny, mild abrasive particles in it, usually something called hydrated silica or baking soda. Think of them like microscopic scrubbing dust. On their own, your bristles can knock plaque loose, sure, but add those tiny little particles and suddenly the brush has actual traction. It's like the difference between wiping a dirty pan with a plain sponge versus a sponge with a Brillo pad on the back. Not that you'd ever use a Brillo pad on your teeth, but you get the point.
So the paste basically gives the brush grip.
Yep, and it's a careful balance because too abrasive and you'd actually wear away your enamel over time, which is why dentists care about the abrasiveness level of a toothpaste and a toothbrush. That's the mechanical side.
Okay, so what's the chemical side?
So this is where it gets clever. Toothpaste also has something called a surfactant in it, usually one called sodium lauryl sulfate, which is the exact same kind of ingredient that makes soap and shampoo foam up.
Wait, so toothpaste is basically soap for my teeth?
Kind of. A surfactant breaks down surface tension and helps lift oily film, food debris, and loose bacteria off the tooth surface, so the brush can actually sweep it away instead of just pushing it around. It also causes a foaming when you brush. That foam you spit out isn't the important part. It's actually just a side effect of the surfactant doing its real job of loosening everything up.
So the foam is basically a bonus, not the point?
Right, and this is why some people who use foam-free toothpaste still get perfectly clean teeth. The foam was never actually the active ingredient, although it is a psychological trick to make you think it's doing something. And then, on top of the scrubbing and the lifting, you've got the fluoride, which I'll talk about later.
Why would people ever get foam-free toothpaste?
Ani, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe some people don't like unnecessary additives.
So it's really three things happening in one tube. Scrub, lift, and rebuild.
That's it exactly. The bristle and the paste aren't really two separate tools. They're a team, and each one helps the other in removing plaque.
All of that because of one species of bacteria, Streptococcus mutans.
You remembered.
Yep, or Doug. So if he's bacteria, where did he even come from? Is he like an infection? Was I just born with him?
Actually, no. And this one surprises a lot of adults. Babies are born with basically no Streptococcus mutans in their mouths at all. It's not something you're born with, it's something you catch, almost always from a parent or caregiver.
So you gave me Doug?
It was actually probably mom. I'll explain later. It happens through saliva sharing a spoon, testing food before feeding a baby, kissing on the mouth, cleaning a drop pacifier with your own mouth instead of water. Researchers actually have a name for it, the window of infectivity, usually somewhere between about 6 months and 2 years old, when a baby's first teeth are coming in and those bacteria have something to grab onto.
So it's not gross bugs floating in the air, it's like the family bug, like midichlorians in the forest.
It's a strange way to squeeze a Star Wars reference into a podcast. But yes, it tends to run in families, mother to child especially. just because of how much close contact happens at that age. It's not anyone's fault. It's just how the biology works. But it is part of why dentists now tell new parents to avoid sharing spoons with infants.
So parents aren't supposed to kiss their babies? That'll never fly. Unless the parents have an ugly baby. It sounds like it's an uphill battle with Doug. You gave them to us. We can't get rid of him. We have to brush and brush. Is there anything that can give us an edge in this fight?
Yeah, fluoride.
Fluoride and fluorine for your pretty teeth. From the periodic table song?
Yes, fluoride is the ionic form of the element fluorine. Basically what you get when fluorine gains an electron. And it's controversial. Let's actually dig into it, because there's real science here and I don't want to just wave my hand and say, fluoride, good, like the magical force waving thing, which people can't see me because I'm a podcast. Fluoride's job is to help with that remineralization process I mentioned. When fluoride is present, it doesn't just replace the lost calcium and phosphate. It actually forms a new, tougher mineral called fluorapatite, which resists acid better than a tooth's original enamel.
So it upgrades your teeth? How?
This new fluorapatite is about 10 times more resistant to acid than hydroxyapatite, your normal remineralized enamel. Tooth enamel normally starts to demineralize at a pH of 5.5, but fluorapatite can hold on until the pH drops closer to 4.5.
Impressive, but that sounds like no match for Coca-Cola. With a pH of 2.5, that's like the Sith Lord of tooth decay.
You know what? You just taught me something. I didn't realize how acidic Coca-Cola is. That's pretty bad, but good analogy. Anyways, is fluoride strictly needed? Your body can remineralize without fluoride, using just calcium and phosphate from saliva. But decades of population-level data, going back to studies in the 1940s comparing towns with naturally fluoridated water to towns without it, show cavity rates drop dramatically with fluoride exposure. That's not a fringe claim. That's about as well replicated as public health data gets.
So, why do some people not trust it?
Some of it's a legitimate question about dosage. Too much fluoride, especially in little kids who swallow toothpaste, can cause a cosmetic issue called fluorosis. Usually it's mild, just some white spotting, but in more severe cases it can cause staining or pitting. That's a real documented thing, and it's why we use a pea-sized amount for you. The good news is it only affects teeth while they're still developing under the gums, so it's really a young kid concern, not something that happens to adult teeth.
So fluoride can actually be bad for you?
In high enough doses, yeah, and I don't want to gloss over that part, because it's real. Fluoride is one of those things where the dose truly makes the poison. At the tiny concentrations in toothpaste and drinking water, it's helpful. But at high enough doses, it's genuinely toxic. It can cause nausea, seizures, even be fatal in extreme cases. So the skepticism isn't crazy. It's actually a good instinct. The real question is just what dose we're talking about.
Okay, so who decides how much goes in the water? Like, is there a rule everybody follows?
Here's the part that surprises people. There isn't one single national number that every town in America has to use. The decision to fluoridate water at all is made locally, city by city or country by country, not by the federal government. The EPA sets an upper legal limit, and health agencies recommend an optimal target. But the actual choice to add fluoride and how carefully it's monitored comes down to whoever's running that particular water system.
So it's kind of a patchwork?
Yeah, and that patchwork has actually caused real harm before. In 1992, in a small Alaska native village called Hooper Bay, a fluoride pump at one of the town's wells malfunctioned, and it kept injecting fluoride even as water levels in a tank dropped. The result was drinking water with roughly 40 times the intended fluoride level.
40 times? What happened?
Over 200 people got sick, and tragically, one man died. It's considered the largest fluoride poisoning outbreak ever documented in the US. And when the investigators looked into why, it wasn't fluoride itself that was the problem. It was a small, under-resourced local water system with a broken pump and not enough trained staff to catch it in time.
That's really scary.
It is, and I think the honest, nuanced takeaway is this. At the correct, tightly monitored dose, fluoride has decades of solid evidence behind it for preventing cavities. But because it's managed locally rather than under one uniform national system, the quality of that monitoring genuinely varies from place to place. and Hooper Bay shows what happens when it fails. So claiming fluoride does nothing at all doesn't match the evidence, but neither does treating it like it's risk-free, no matter the amount. Reasonable people can debate the level and the oversight. That's a fair policy conversation.
Okay, so fluoride is in the public drinking water and toothpaste. The toothpaste goes on the toothbrush. I brush, then I floss.
I'll stop you right there. Dentists generally recommend a different order to it, and there is actual logic behind it. Floss first.
Really? I always thought floss was like the finishing touch.
Nope, floss first because flossing physically breaks up plaque and food particles between your teeth, spaces your toothbrush bristles you literally can't reach. Then, when you brush right after, the fluoride toothpaste can actually get into those spaces you just opened up, instead of the plaque blocking it.
Oh, so floss first is like clearing a path.
Exactly. Then brush. 2 minutes, all surfaces, and this is the part almost everyone gets wrong. Don't rinse with water right away.
Oh, that explains why Dominic is always telling Cecilia and me not to drink water right after. But I've gotten better about it.
Spit out the extra toothpaste, but don't swish water around. If you rinse with water, you literally wash away the fluoride that was just sitting on your teeth doing its remineralization job. Dentists actually recommend just spitting and letting that fluoride sit there for 15 minutes.
That feels so wrong. My whole life I've been rinsing.
I know, it goes against instinct, but that's the evidence-based order. Floss, brush, spit, and don't rinse. Mouthwash, if you use it, is best at a totally different time of day, so it's not immediately diluting the fluoride. And some recommend not even using alcohol-based mouthwashes at all.
Okay, this is wild. I feel like I've been doing dental care wrong my whole life.
Well, hey, you're 10. You've got time to fix your technique.
Dad, you sure know a lot about dental hygiene. When did people ever figure out Sugarbug Dog existed? Like, did cavemen just have terrible teeth?
This is where it gets genuinely fascinating, because dental hygiene is way older than you'd think. But the science of why it works is really recent. Let's start ancient. Archaeologists have found what are called chew sticks, twigs frayed at one end into a brush shape, used in Babylon around 3500 BC. The frayed sticks help remove plaque and food particles.
So people were basically brushing their teeth with sticks thousands of years ago?
Pretty much. The ancient Egyptians even had a toothpaste recipe. And I want you to brace yourself for this one. Made of crushed eggshells, ox hooves, and ashes from burnt ox hooves, mixed with pumice.
That's disgusting. Sounds like that'd give you bad breath after you brush.
Maybe. Now fast forward a long way. The bristle toothbrush, as we'd recognize it, was invented in China around 1498 AD, using bristles literally plucked from the necks of Siberian hogs attached to a bone or bamboo handle.
Pig neck hair? Got it. Moving on.
Fair. Now here's the part that connects to Doug. For most of human history, people knew something caused tooth decay, but they blamed the wrong culprit entirely, something called toothworms.
Worms in your teeth?
For literally thousands of years, Sumerian texts from 5000 BC, ancient Chinese medicine, even into 1700s Europe, the dominant theory was that tiny worms burrowed into your teeth and caused the pain and decay. Dentists would sometimes even fake extracting a worm to convince the patient they were cured.
That's a scam.
Total scam, though I think most of them genuinely believed it. It wasn't until the 1890s that an American dentist named Willoughby Miller, working in a lab in Germany, proved through actual experiments that specific bacteria, not worms, were fermenting sugars into the acid that caused decay. He's considered the father of what's called the chemoparasitic theory of cavities.
So he's basically the guy who unmasked Sugarbug Doug.
It's a great way to put it. Miller identified that there was a bug behind the decay, even before we had the tools to pinpoint Streptococcus mutans specifically as the main offender. That took a few more steps. A dentist named J. Killian Clark actually isolated Streptococcus mutans for the first time in 1924, and then decades later, researchers named Fitzgerald and Loesch ran experiments that nailed down just how central Doug really is to the whole process.
But was this always this big of a problem? Like, did people even get cavities before there was candy and soda and stuff? People back then were eating nuts and grains and all things paleo, right? They didn't have candy and Coca-Cola.
Insightful question, and you're pretty on point. Cavities used to be way less common. Anthropologists who study ancient skeletons find that hunter-gatherer populations before farming had pretty low rates of tooth decay because their diet was mostly meat, nuts, and fibrous plants. Not a lot of fermentable carbohydrate for Doug's ancestors to feast on.
So, Doug didn't have much to eat?
Basically, then things got worse in two big waves. The first is the agricultural revolution, thousands of years ago, when humans started relying heavily on grain, wheat, corn, that kind of thing, and cavity rates climbed noticeably because starchy grains break down into sugars too. And the second, much bigger wave is sugar itself becoming cheap and available.
Wasn't sugar always around though?
Not the way it is now. For most of human history, sugar was rare and expensive, almost a luxury good, imported in small amounts. That changed with the Atlantic sugar trade starting in the 1500s and 1600s, and it really exploded during the Industrial Revolution, when refined sugar became cheap enough for ordinary people to eat every day. Dentists and historians both point to that shift as the moment cavity rates in Europe and eventually America really took off.
So, Doug basically had a population boom once sugar got cheap.
That's exactly it. More available sugar, more food for Doug, more cavities. It's a pretty clean line from economic history straight to what's happening in your mouth.
That explains the history of the toothbrushes and sugar. But what about fillings? Like when did people start fixing cavities instead of just pulling teeth?
A long time ago. In 2001, researchers found a 14,000-year-old tooth in Italy with clear evidence of a hole that had been drilled and cleaned out using a flint tool, way before metal existed.
14,000 years?
Yep, Stone Age dentistry. And beeswax has been found used as a filling material in a 6,500-year-old jawbone in Slovenia. Modern style amalgam fillings, the silvery metal kind, didn't show up until the 1800s in France and quickly spread, though people argued for decades about whether the mercury in them was safe.
Mercury? In people's mouths?
Dental amalgam is a mixture of metals, including mercury, bound into a stable alloy, and it's actually still used today and considered safe by major health organizations, though it's gradually being replaced by tooth-colored composite resins for a lot of reasons, including looks.
Okay, you always have a weight. Really? Fact. What's today's?
Okay, so George Washington. Everybody knows he had bad teeth and famously wore dentures.
Weren't they made of wood?
That's actually the myth. Washington's dentures were not wood. They were made from a combination of ivory, gold, lead, and this is the part that gets people, human teeth. And in some cases, even teeth pulled from enslaved people on his plantation, which historians have documented and is a genuinely uncomfortable part of the story.
What are dentures?
Dentures? Just like fake teeth.
So he bought other people's teeth?
There are payment records showing he purchased teeth from enslaved individuals at Mount Vernon, which is part of why historians today push back hard on the cheerful wooden teeth myth. The real story is much darker, and it's tied directly into the injustice of slavery. It's a good example of how a fun fact can hide something that deserves to be taken seriously.
That's actually really sad. Not just a fun fact.
Right, and I think that's worth sitting with for a second rather than rushing past it. History usually isn't cute trivia. Sometimes the real story underneath is more important than the myth.
So has this whole tooth thing shaped like culture and stuff? Or is it just a health thing?
It's everywhere once you start looking. Think about it. A bright, straight smile is one of the most universal symbols of health and status in modern advertising. Toothpaste companies weren't just selling clean teeth, they were selling confidence, romance, and success.
Like in commercials?
Exactly, and there's actually a famous marketing story here. In the early 1900s, toothbrushing wasn't a daily habit for most Americans. A guy named Claude Hopkins, an advertising pioneer, ran a campaign for Pepsodent toothpaste that basically invented the feeling of a filmy mouth, telling people to run their tongue across their teeth and notice the film. And that campaign is credited with making brushing a genuine national habit within about a decade.
So brushing your teeth every day is kind of because of a commercial?
A huge part of it, yeah, which is a wild thing to sit with. That doesn't mean it's not a good idea, but someone's making money at the end of it. There's an environmental angle too. Think about how many plastic toothbrushes get thrown away every single year. Just in the US, it's over 1 billion. That's part of why bamboo toothbrushes have become popular, trying to cut down on that plastic waste.
Okay, one more. Is there anything religious tied to this, since we are a church family and all?
There actually is, and it connects to something St. Paul wrote, that your body is a temple. Not in a worship your body way, but in a sense that taking care of your physical health, even something as small as brushing your teeth, is a form of respecting something God gave you and entrusted to your care. It's a small daily act of stewardship.
So, what does any of this actually matter for me, like today?
Well, for one, now you actually understand why the rule exists, instead of just following them because someone told you to. That's a way better place to be. Same reason we always try to talk through the why instead of just handing you a rule.
Yeah, like I'm not just fighting cavities, I'm fighting an actual specific bacteria with a named in a plant.
Right, and honestly, that's a good way to think about a lot of self-discipline in life. This connects to a virtue called temperance. Temperance isn't about never enjoying anything. It's about moderation. Enjoying a cookie without letting Sugarbug Doug throw an all-night rave in your mouth.
Doug is not invited to the rave.
Doug is banned from all raves, permanently. Okay, and the best for last. Joke time. What did the dentist say to the golfer?
I don't know. Pay your bill?
You have a hole-in-one.
That was terrible, Dad.
Thank you. I test those in your mother first.
Okay, trivia time.
Hit it.
Question 1. What ancient civilization made a toothpaste out of crushed eggshells and burnt ox hooves? Question 2. What was the real material, not wood, that made up the most of George Washington's dentures? Question 3. What was the actual scientific name of the bacteria we nicknamed Sugarbug Doug?
Great questions. If you, listening at home, want to check your answers or just want more of these deep dive episodes, go ahead and leave us a 5-star review and re-listen to the podcast. It genuinely helps other curious families find the show.
And go check out our YouTube channel, Contemplative Chaos. That's where me and Dad do all our other hangout stuff, not just episode topics.
Yeah, like backpacking and camping. That's right. Separate from the podcast, just us being us. All right, Lonnie, go brush your teeth and floss. It's bedtime.